20 years after her infant son was abducted without a trace, Delilah was shelving books at the library when she heard a voice on the street. Soft, familiar. She turned and saw him. Same eyes, same birthmark, same face she kissed goodnight as a baby. But now he was a grown man, and he didn't know who she was. Delilah Saunders had given up hope. Her son Noah had been taken from her arms at a grocery store parking lot when he was only 18 months old. It was a sunny Thursday in May. She had turned away for 5 seconds to load milk into the trunk. That's all it took. No sounds, no witness, no security footage that could help. By the time police arrived, the baby carrier was empty. A pacifier lay on the pavement like a cruel joke. She screamed until her voice broke, begged God, strangers, detectives, anyone who would listen to find her son. They searched. Across cities, across states. Posters, news reports, psychic tips, dead ends. After a year, the case went cold. Delilah kept Noah's room untouched for 10 years. Every birthday, she baked a small cake. Every Christmas, she wrapped a gift no one would open. At some point, people stopped checking in. Even the detectives changed departments or retired, but she never stopped looking. Not really. She moved to a smaller town in Vermont, took a job at the local library. Quiet work, predictable days. It was safer that way, painful but manageable. Then on a Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. Delilah was restocking a display table near the front entrance when she heard the door chime. A boy's voice, laughing, maybe 18, maybe 20. Her back was turned, but her heart jolted. Something in that laugh. She looked up. There he was. Not a boy anymore. A young man. Broad shoulders, camera bag slung across his chest. A small crescent-shaped birthmark just below his jawline. The one her baby had. Delilah dropped the book in her hand. Time folded in on itself. He glanced her way, smiled politely, then turned his attention to a stack of magazines. She stood frozen, eyes locked. The magazine in his hand, Traveler's Light, featured a full-spread photo of him standing in front of a Nepalese temple. The caption read, Elijah West 21, rising photojournalist on a solo world tour. Elijah. She wanted to scream his name, the real one, Noah. But she didn't. Not yet. Because this couldn't be real. Delilah waited until he left her hands trembling. Then she tore the page from the magazine and collapsed into the staff room. She ran the image through every online facial recognition software she could find. Within hours, she had her match. The software pinged an adoption record, sealed. But a breach in 2005 allowed partial digital traces to remain. His file had been buried. Changed name, changed birthday. No known biological relatives. She called the old detective Frank Milligan. Retired, long, gray beard, bitter and tired. But when he heard her voice, he said one thing. Come to my house. Frank had always believed her. He'd spent years trying to crack the case. But the trail went cold so fast. Now looking at the photo, his expression changed. You were right, he said. He's alive. They ran a private investigation. No police yet. Too risky. Too much at stake. They followed Elijah, quietly, respectfully. Delilah watched him walk into a campus cafe, laugh with friends, show off prints from his latest trip. She memorized the way he held a coffee cup left hand like his dad, the way he tilted his head when he smiled. And every night, she sat by her window with that magazine page in her lap, asking herself one question. What do I say to a son who doesn't know he's mine? Delilah knew she couldn't just walk up to him and say, I'm your mother. He wouldn't believe her. She wouldn't have believed her. So she wrote a letter. Not an accusation, not a confession. Just a story of a woman who once had a baby boy. Of a boy who loved ducks and giggled when his feet touched grass. Of a mother who never stopped hearing his cry in the middle of the night even when there was no crib anymore. She never signed it. She left it folded inside the magazine he had looked at, tucked between pages, so maybe, just maybe, he'd find it again. And then she waited. 3 days passed, then 4. On the 5th day, the door to the library opened and he walked in, not smiling, holding the letter in his hand. Their eyes met across the room. No one else mattered. He approached slowly, uncertain. Did you write this? He asked. Delilah's throat tightened. Yes. He studied her. How do you know about that birthmark? She paused, then answered, because I kissed it every night for the first 18 months of your life. He didn't speak. He just sat, slowly. For a long time, neither of them moved. Then he asked, what's my name? Delilah whispered Noah. His eyes filled. I've had dreams where someone calls me that. That night they sat on a bench outside the library until it closed. She told him about his first word ball, his favorite song, Twinkle Twinkle, the scar on his toe from when he kicked the coffee table trying to walk too fast. He listened, shaking, not denying. Then he asked the question she had dreaded for 20 years. Who took me? The trail led to a name, Claire Mathers. She had worked as a child care volunteer at a hospital where Delilah had briefly visited for a checkup with Noah 2 months before he was taken. Claire had no children of her own. A string of miscarriages. Medical records confirmed deep psychological trauma. But no prior record, no reason for the police to suspect her. She had moved states 3 times since 1999. Changed her name once. Settled in Connecticut claiming Elijah as her adopted son after presenting forged documents. She'd homeschooled him, raised him with love but in complete isolation. No extended family, no social media until college. She said my birth mom abandoned me, Elijah said. That no one ever wanted me. Delilah's stomach turned. Frank, the retired detective, helped file the report. The FBI got involved. Claire was arrested quietly. Elijah didn't want to be there for it. He just wanted the truth. When Claire was interrogated, she didn't deny it. She wept. Said she had saved him from a system that would have chewed him up. She fed me, clothed me, gave me everything, Elijah told Delilah one night, but she lied. Delilah didn't try to make him hate her. She still took care of you, she said gently, but it was never hers to begin with. The media storm hit fast. Abducted baby. Reunited with mother. After 20 years. Library worker identifies son on magazine. Cover cold case. Solved by fate and a photo. Cameras crowded their small Vermont town. Reporters called. Podcasts speculated. Documentaries were pitched. Delilah wanted none of it. Elijah agreed. They needed time, not headlines. In the months that followed, they rebuilt slowly. At first, it was awkward. What do you say to a grown man who used to be your baby? She showed him home videos. He cried watching his infant self wobble across carpeted floors. He recognized her voice. Said it echoed in his dreams as a child, but he could never place it. She helped him remember not by force, but by presence. Elijah began therapy. He met his grandparents for the first time, cousins, aunts, a family he'd been stolen from. At Thanksgiving, he sat at the head of the table. No one said grace. Delilah simply whispered, "Thank you for coming home." Elijah had 2 lives now, the one he remembered and the one he was meant to have. For weeks, he drifted between them like a passenger on a boat with no compass. His memories of Claire, his mom, for 2 decades were full of warmth, bedtime stories, scraped knees, soup on sick days. But now those memories were colored by a shadow, love built on lies. He asked Delilah one night, "Do you think I'll ever forgive her?" Delilah didn't answer right away. Finally, she said, "Maybe. But not because she deserves it. For your own peace." Elijah stared at the ceiling that night, thinking of all the birthdays celebrated under a false name, all the truths never told. He realized he had never truly seen a photo of himself as a baby, never heard his real name said with the weight of memory. Now he couldn't stop hearing it. Noah, Noah. Delilah started calling him that more gently, like watering a plant that hadn't grown in years, and slowly he began to respond. One afternoon, they visited the tree where she had carved his initials as a toddler, N.S. Noah Saunders. He touched the bark with his fingers, tracing the groove. "This is the only place where both of my names feel like they fit," he whispered. Then he turned to her. "Do you still have the bear?" She blinked. "Mr. Waffles?" He nodded. She laughed, then cried. "Yes, in a box, with your baby blanket and your little red shoes. I kept everything." He asked to see it all. That night, they sat cross-legged on the floor of her attic, pulling out artifacts of a life interrupted. There were photos, hospital bracelets, the first drawing he ever made scribbles in yellow crayon. He looked at it like he was reading ancient scripture. He pressed it to his chest. "This was real," he said. Delilah smiled through tears. "You were always real." The trial for Claire moved quietly. She pled guilty to kidnapping and fraud. The court considered her years of raising Elijah, but the crime was undeniable. She was sentenced to 15 years with no possibility of parole. Elijah visited her once. He walked into the prison's visitation room, sat across from the woman who raised him, and asked why. Claire didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just said, "Because I couldn't have one of my own, and you were too perfect to leave behind." He stood to leave. Before he walked out, she asked, "Do you hate me?" He paused. "No," he said. "But I know who I am now, and I have to live with the truth." She lowered her eyes. "Then I hope you live well." By his 22nd birthday, Elijah had legally reclaimed his birth name, Noah Elijah Saunders. He printed new business cards, Noah E. Saunders, freelance photographer, survivor. He gave a TED Talk called The Second Life Reclaiming Identity After Abduction. Millions watched. Not because of the crime, but because of the healing. He ended the talk with a photo, not of himself, but of Delilah, standing in the library, arms full of books, smiling. "That's the moment I found home," he said. They traveled together that summer to every place she had once sent search flyers. She took pictures of him in front of post offices where she'd mailed missing person reports. He took a photo of her standing in front of a diner in Nebraska where she'd once handed out hand-drawn sketches of his baby face. "I don't remember these places," he said, "but now I remember you in them." Delilah kept a scrapbook of the journey. She titled it Finding Noah. 1 year later, a small bench was placed in the corner of the library where she first saw him again. It bore no fancy plaque, just 2 lines carved simply into the wood. "Sometimes the lost aren't gone. They're just waiting to be seen again." Years passed. Delilah's hair turned to silver. Noah's eyes stayed the same. They no longer talked about the lost years every day. They didn't have to. The absence had carved its shape into their relationship quietly, respectfully. It didn't dominate them anymore. It just lived beside them like an old scar. Noah built a career. He published his first photo book, Unfound, a haunting series of portraits of missing person posters in forgotten towns. He dedicated it to those who are still waiting and those who never stopped. Delilah, now semi-retired, gave talks at support groups for families of the missing. Sometimes she'd hold up Noah's baby photo and say, "If you have nothing else, hold on to hope. It's the only thing that doesn't age." People listened. Some cried. Others came just to sit near someone who had lived the unlivable and returned not bitter but whole. One morning, Noah received a letter from an 11-year-old boy in Ohio. He had watched his TED Talk in class. His older sister had gone missing 2 years earlier. The letter ended with, "I don't know if she'll ever come back, but I hope I can be as strong as you." Noah framed it. It hung above his desk, next to a faded drawing in yellow crayon. Every year on the anniversary of his abduction, Noah and Delilah took a silent walk through the neighborhood where it all began. They stopped at the grocery store, now a coffee shop, and sat outside. She still remembered the exact parking spot, but now it didn't hurt the same way. Noah would sip tea, glance at the sidewalk, and say, "Funny how everything can change in seconds." Delilah would nod, and then change again. They didn't call it a miracle. That word felt too neat for something so messy. But they did call it grace, the kind that finds you when you least expect it. The kind that shows up in the face of a stranger holding a magazine, only to realize he isn't a stranger at all. He's your son. And he was always trying to come back. When Noah turned 25, he changed his signature. For most of his life, he had signed things with an E. Elijah. But now, at the bottom of his letters, his books, his emails, he began to write, Noah Elijah Saunders, not to erase who he had been, but to honor both halves of who he was. That year, he gave Delilah a framed photo for her birthday. It was a picture of her taken candidly as she looked out a window, sunlight touching her hair like fire. At the bottom, he'd etched 5 words, "You never stopped being Mom." She didn't cry right away. She just sat with it, hands on the frame. Then she whispered, "I missed your first word." Noah leaned in. "Maybe, but I'm saying it now." He pulled her into an embrace and said it aloud without hesitation, "Mom." And this time she heard it, with no echo of doubt, no fog of memory, just truth. On the 5th anniversary of their reunion, Delilah and Noah visited a national center for missing children. They didn't come as a case study or as speakers. They came as witnesses, to stand quietly in the room full of photos, to look into faces still waiting to be found. Delilah touched one, a girl from Arizona, missing since 2008. "She might be sitting in a coffee shop right now," she said softly, looking at someone who reminds her of home. Noah nodded. "You only have to be seen once to be found." Later that day, as they walked through the parking lot, a young mother was loading groceries into her trunk. Her toddler kicked his legs in the carrier, laughing. Noah paused. Delilah watched him. "You okay?" He smiled gently. Yeah, just remembering the ending I didn't get, and the new one we made. She took his hand, and they walked forward. Together. If this story reached something deep inside you, if it reminded you of someone you lost or someone you're still waiting for, don't keep it to yourself. Keep it. Leave a comment below. What moment in this story stayed with you most? Like this video to help others find stories that give hope where it's hardest to hold on. Subscribe to Tim's Stories for more real-life narratives that go beyond headline stories of healing humanity and second chances. Turn on notifications because the next story could be the one someone's been waiting to hear.